Hi, welcome back to Charley Talk. I'm John Sonderegger. We're talking state politics and state legislation with Representative Zerr and State Senator Scott Rupp, or Senator Scott Rupp. Either way?
Just call me Rupp.
Call you Rupp? Okay. Um, Before we broke, we were talking about the budget, and we were talking about the shortfalls in the budget, and we were talking about Medicaid and social services. This has been a big sticking point for Republicans. And you were talking, Scott, about you made the tough decisions in 2005, therefore we're not as bad off as we could be. Let's go back. Say we don't have the Republicans in charge of the legislature, and we don't have Matt Blunt, we don't have blunt trauma, as it was called. Where are we?
We're with the likes of Illinois and California with several $billions in the red. Back in 2005, the growth, just the growth, not adding any new people onto welfare, not adding any new services, just waking up on the first day of the fiscal year, that program was growing by about $650 million to do the same thing. So you extrapolate that out, and it was going to bankrupt the state. We saw it coming. We said we have to make this reductions. We have to live within our means. The voters live within their means in their household. Government needs to live within its means. At times it was unpopular, but we had to do it. And even though things are tight now, look at all these other states that just refused. They buried their head in the sand, and they didn't take the tough stands, and now they are in horrible, horrible mess.
So what happens if you're being set up this time again, and the governor leaves it up to the House to make the hard cuts on where the money is? And as soon as you start doing it, there'll be press conferences and saying about the mean old Republicans taking money away from the kids' health care and lunches and all that.
That's kind of interesting. During the session last year, the House really held the line and said, no, we aren't going to reinstate people on welfare. And we were really criticized by practically everybody. And we sent it over that way, and it got through, and it went to the governor's desk. And interestingly enough, that just recently he had to withhold those same amounts. He had to withhold those same funds that he wanted us to allocate. That he wanted to put in, I guess I should say. And it's just a tough year, and you have to make those decisions.
Was there any public reaction or outcry when he held that money?
No,
no. I'm surprised.
Boy, but we got blasted.
Yeah.
But you know what? You just Scott's the same way. You have to do the right thing. You're elected for a reason. You're elected to represent your constituency and what's good for the public in our state. And to be fiscally irresponsible is untoward. It's just not the right thing to do. And these are hard times. But I'll still stick with that forever.
Well, when the governor did make the withholding, and I think he withheld that money a couple months ago, he said, well, we have to do it. We're not like Washington. We can't just print money. Which brings us to another subject. Washington prints money. It sends it here, and you guys spend it at a certain level, and we've talked about that. And I thought last year you decided that, especially for unemployment benefits, you weren't going to accept the money unless, what was the deal on that? That you accepted the money, but there was a time limit on it, or?
Well, the first thing is we wanted to do our best to spend one-time influx of money, the stimulus plan, on one-time expenses, not ongoing programs.
Right.
Some of it we couldn't help. They came right through the Medicaid program, and it went right into the system, and we had really no say over it. So that's what's setting up that cliff effect. You don't spend one-time money on an ongoing service, because when it goes away, you're worse for wear. The issue you're talking about with the unemployment was in order to accept some of the money that was coming down for our unemployment insurance fund, we had to make some changes, systematic changes forever to our unemployment program that was radically insane. You would have had to have given unemployment insurance benefits to part-time workers. Well, so basically, if I'm a high school student working at a fast food restaurant and I I now can get unemployment for being a part-timer if I only was choosing part-time. If your commute you thought was too far, then you left your job, you could get unemployment. These are types of changes that when we did the math, in order to accept a $60 million influx of cash, it would have increased the cost on our employers about $70–80 million a year every year for a one-time infusion of cash. So the stimulus plan was not well thought out, and we were doing everything we could to make sure that we didn't just blindly accept the money flowing from heaven, and we refused certain parts of it, and we took steps to make sure it didn't damage us long term.
Well, what about the Medicaid money that came in? Did you have a say-so over that, or did that just automatically go into the pot?
It just automatically came in the form of a higher reimbursement rate from the federal government. So let's say you get reimbursed X percent for every person on this program. They just increased that percent that you got. So you had X number of people, so you had 3,000 people, and you got a larger check based off of the money that came down. It went right into the state system, and it really wasn't something that we as legislatures could appropriate and say, no, we want that to go here.
Right.
It was tied to an existing system, to the existing formula. They just paid us more money for it.
The scary thing about this is it's not just Missouri. That happened everywhere, including a lot of states that are bankrupt already, So is it designed to bankrupt all the states, or what do you think?
Oh, gee, if we bankrupt the states, federal government has to come in to offer a bailout with some more strings attached, more control, less states' rights, less individual rights. You couldn't argue that.
I think some people have.
Have you all seen that U.S. debt clock? I'll just throw that out on the table. It's on you can do a Google on it, the U.S. debt clock, and it shows our deficit, our debt per man, woman, and child, how much we owe other countries, what's our unemployment rate, what the Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud. It's a fascinating website, and you just watch it tick, tick, tick. You just watch, nothing's going down.
Yeah.
It's all going
It's like
up.
a time bomb, actually.
It sure is.
So if the state is going to come up short again, do we raise taxes?
No.
You live within your means.
You live within your means.
And you don't systematically go out and tax people because you have a one-time shortfall. You trim your budget, and you look at areas in which you can reduce and save. And the last thing anybody in their right mind would want to do is raise taxes on an economy like this.
Yeah.
Less people being hired,
yeah.
and it'd be punitive to the working.
How do we fit in nationally, state tax-wise? I mean, are we a high-tax state? Are we in the middle, or where are we?
It depends on who you talk to. I think 80% of all stats are about 40% accurate. I mean, you look at these things, and you could have those that say, oh, we're the 47th lowest tax, and then you look at others and say, oh, we're not that bad. Everything I've seen, we're right in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, we're right in the middle. I mean, 30, 25, 30, right in there.
And if you want to attract businesses to the state, you can't really slap a big corporate tax on them. Nobody will come. And that's where the jobs are. I think that really is one of the main problems with all the economy is we got less people on payrolls, and therefore they're not paying taxes. So a lot more money is not coming in.
Yeah, I mean, you take someone from a taxpayer, all of a sudden they become a tax consumer because they lost their job. 60% of our general revenue comes from personal withholding, which is people earning higher incomes and earning incomes at all, and that goes down as goes Missouri's budget. So the key is jobs, getting people back to work, high family supporting jobs, and that's what we tried to do in the last several years with our surpluses, was get out of the way. We had a $300 million shortfall in 2003, people forget. We were presented with two options. The governor at the time, Bob Holden, said, I want a $1 billion tax increase. We said, heck no, and we went in and we changed the regulatory reform, and we got out of the way of business. And then we saw 3 or 4 years of systemic growth in our state revenue because people were working, people were adding jobs. So that's what we have to do is you can't tax your way to prosperity. You help people create jobs, especially in the small business area. That's what drives your economy.
Well, how much sales tax are you guys reliant on sales tax for the state?
It's about 25% of our budget, and it's declined for 8 quarters in a row. It has just systematically gone down and down and down, and so you take sales tax plus personal withholding, that's why we're about $1 billion short.
Okay. We're going to take another little break. When we come back, we're going to stop being Debbie Downer, and we're going to talk a little bit about what, as legislators, they can do to try to make our lives better. We'll be right back.